I thought the next time that I'd be sitting here on camera doing a long form video for you guys would be to talk about a Nintendo Direct as I like to do, but we haven't gotten one, so it looks like I'm playing the waiting game a little bit. But I have actually had a few ideas for longer videos that I want to make happen. A lot of these have actually been kind of sitting around on my laptop for a hot minute, but now I finally am starting to make some progress and figure out where I want to take a few of them. So now I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm sorry it's been a minute since the last long form video. Life has been pretty crazy lately in terms of just a lot of things going on. Earlier this month, it was my birthday. I turned 27, and I feel like I've barely had a minute to breathe since then. Shit's been super chaotic, so I'm still figuring things out, but hopefully I'll be able to get these videos out to you guys. Also, I'm sorry if things look a tiny bit different. Recently I got a new mattress on my bed, but it's way bigger now, so I had to kind of change the way the camera is angled now, so sorry if I look weird. I hope I'm looking at you guys. I'm looking into the lens. I hope it looks like I'm looking at you guys and not at the screen. But either way, we're here. Welcome back to I Want to Talk About, the series where I take a topic, I sit on camera, and I blabber about it. And given how quickly this video idea came to me, I don't know what the title is at the moment, but as you can tell from the title, today I want to talk about games that I like for reasons that don't necessarily pertain to the quality. Let's say my favorite mid games. Does that work? I hope it does. Many of you may know this, but obviously last year I went on a rampage where I uploaded a bunch of videos talking about my favorite games of given years. In some cases it was multiple years, it was like eras, but for the most part it was individual years. And I also do these kinds of videos at the end of the year where I'm like, hey, these are my favorite games of a given year. Now, one thing I noticed that I just kind of thought about recently is when it comes to these videos, there are 3 different lists in those videos that I talk about. My just missed the cut games, which are games that would be like a 7 out of 10 on my personal 0 to 10 rating scale. The cream before the crop, which are games that would be like an 8 or 9 out of 10. And then my proper, 10 out of 10, these are my favorite games lists. And one thing that I kind of thought of recently when kind of thinking of that is there are quite a few games actually that I go back to quite a bit or that I enjoy that don't belong in any of those lists, and I think that that's because a number rating doesn't always tell the whole story. A lot of times you give a number rating to give some kind of like metric of how much you enjoy something, and I like to give number ratings to games I play just as like a way to remember. It's just easy instead of one day being like, I give this game an 8. Actually, no, I give it a 9. At least it kind of gives me like a hard and fast, like, hey, this is how I feel. But a lot of times, it sounds weird to say, but sometimes you find yourself returning to a 6 out of 10 game more than like a 9 or 10 out of 10 game. There are games that I've given a 10 out of 10 to that I'm like, that was awesome. I don't really want to play it again though. But there are some games that I give like a 6 out of 10 to and I'm like, it was okay. See you again in a couple months. Because sometimes there's something to be said for something that's just kind of alright. If the vibes are good enough, you kind of just want to go back to it. And I noticed there are quite a few games that I've given like a 5 or 6 out of 10 to that I, despite not really being too fond of, enjoy going back to. Honestly, there's a game that I've given like a 2 out of 10 to that I like going back to quite a bit, and that's Land Before Time Return to the Great Valley, because I love me a good license game, and even though this game is pretty damn bad, I can't lie, it's still got a fun little charm to it because of how bad it is. At least it's kind of fun to laugh at. Or I've made some jokes about this really small game known as The Letter, which is one of the few games I've given like a 0 out of 10 to, but I can't lie, I've played through it multiple times because, I don't know, sometimes when something is not good, it's, I guess, hard to look away from it, but also, I mean, there's kind of like a weird charm to this game being like, oh, it's like, how did this end up being made as a video game? Like, I don't know, there's a charm to it. So I want to go through some of those games that I think have that kind of charm to it, where I'm like, it's not the best, but it's kind of fun to go back to. I have a script here. There's not a whole lot in terms of like a proper script written, so if it feels like I'm rambling at points, my apologies. I'm going to try to make this video not super long, but don't hold me to that. Anyway, let's jump right in. When making my video on, I believe it was 1999 or maybe 2000, I talked about Rugrats Studio Tour, which was the first console video game I ever owned. But little did I know as a young child that it actually was a sequel. The first game was this one right here, Rugrats Search for Reptar, also developed by N-Space, on the PS1. And again, I must not have known it pretty well because, well, 1998 was the year of my birth, but I actually had family who owned this game long before I did. I ended up grabbing it several years down the line just because I was interested, and also because I had had no idea that Studio Tour was not its own thing. I had no idea there was another game that came before it. But I've played this game a lot of times. In fact, it's kind of become one of those games that I play like once a year, once every 2 years. Every once in a while I just go back to it because it's cute, it's fun. As someone who grew up with the Rugrats, I think it does kind of carry the Rugrats charm and style to it, and it's a decent game with some fun enough mini-games, even though, yeah, the controls are absolute wank in this game. I know that Studio Tour had some rough controls, but even that game was a little better than this. This was like, what the hell happened here? But it is fun, and again, as a fan of the Rugrats, I think it does respect the source material very well. Many of you know that I am a huge Pixar fanatic, but it turns out this is the only Pixar game we're going to be talking about in this video. I talked in the other videos in the I want to talk about my favorite game series about Toy Story 2 on the PS1 and also Monsters, Inc. Scream Team on the PS1, both of which I thought were legitimately pretty good licensed games. A Bug's Life, though, unlike Search for Reptar, was a game I was not unaware of as a kid because I did own this game. This was also made by Traveler's Tales, who made Toy Story 2, and I mean, it's not as good as Toy Story 2, certainly not the sharpest in terms of the controls, and getting 100% is definitely a pain in the ass. But I do think the game is at least a little bit better than some of its reputation on the internet. It's cute, it's a decent little hop and bop platformer with a cool little concept being that you can like grow seeds and they could help you to, you know, grow into like mushrooms that you can use to bounce on different platforms or things like that. Things that help you kind of advance the gameplay a little bit more. I think it's cute. Not the greatest, but it's a cute enough time for a licensed game based on a pretty underrated Pixar movie. I do actually really like A Bug's Life. I know some people don't see it in quite the same light as other Pixar films, but I think A Bug's Life is fantastic as a film. And as a licensed game, this was a fairly good effort from Traveler's Tales. I know that they've done a lot of really good stuff since this as well, and again, this doesn't scale the heights of those games, but it's a cute game. And again, it's very quick. Even though I mentioned getting 100% is a pain in the ass, you don't have to. You can blow through it in a couple hours. I've done that a couple times. I go back to it every once in a while. It's fun. I enjoy it. Yes, after years of hearing all the memes, I did actually give Pepsiman a try a couple of years ago, thanks to completely legal methods. Totally not emulation. Don't look at me like that. And yes, this game is obviously a total novelty. It is product placement, the video game. If I didn't know any better, I would think it was a Pepsi video game, because it definitely takes its time to remind you that it's Pepsi. And hey, drink Pepsi. Have a Pepsi. Would you like a Pepsi? Are you in trouble? Have a Pepsi. Have you just heard the worst news of your entire life? Have a Pepsi. Did someone important in your life just die? That means Nick Castellanos just hit a home run. Have a Pepsi. But as weird and novelty-ish as it is, I think I really enjoy that the game just kind of knows it's a novelty, and it just kind of plays off the fact that it's weird. I mean, in the middle of the game you have these Americanized cutscenes featuring Mike Butters, who's basically just like doing nothing but drinking Pepsi the whole time, and again, just reminding you, hey, Pepsi. And it is kind of fascinating because the game is basically just a runner type game. Not exactly an endless runner because there are proper levels to it, but it does feel like a bit of a precursor to the endless runner craze that would come along with games like, say, Temple Run, for example, or Subway Surfers or something like that. It's dumb, but sometimes dumb is really, really fun, and I don't mind when a game is just that. Is just dumb, fun, pretty unpretentious, not trying to do much other than give you a good time, and in this game's case, sell you one Pepsi. Which is nice, but Coke is better than Pepsi. In my opinion, at least. Man, where do I start with Pokémon Snap? I mean, it controls like ass, the frame rate sucks at times, and it is often incredibly frustrating. And yet I play it like once a year. I mean, Pokémon Snap already has a pretty nice concept to it. It's a photography game where you're taking pictures of Pokémon, which is kind of a great idea because you see wild Pokemon all the time in the games, so like, hey, you're studying and researching Pokemon for photography. Pretty cool. And it was a game that I played a decent bit as a kid, even as someone who never had a Nintendo 64, just because I had friends and family that did. And I had my fun with it as a kid. As an adult, again, I think it is a mess of a game, but a mess that I enjoy going back to because the vibes are just immaculate. It's, again, a very quick game. It's very warm and very comforting, and it's just really fun to play. Also, talking about it reminds me that I need to replay New Pokemon Snap at some point, because that is a much better game. But yeah, for some reason, I go back to this one a little bit more. Maybe just because it's so short and so easy to get through. Or again, the vibes. Because again, you can't kill the vibes. Throughout this video, you will hear me say about a lot of games, oh, I like it for the vibes. And honestly, sometimes that's a good enough reason. This is a game that I have owned since childhood. My PS1 disc is so damn messed up because I played it so much as a kid. I can't believe the game still works. And by no means is it a great fighting game. It's honestly not. As someone who plays quite a few fighting games, I could tell you, as a fighting game, woof. This game is basically, you know, get one hit and run, maybe shoot a couple projectiles here and there. Mechanically, it's not that great. But the vibes! I do love the cast of Digimon that we have here. I think that it can be fun to play, even if mechanically it's not a great fighting game. The levels are pretty cool, and in a weirdly charming way, I love that the terrible PS1 compression basically makes all the dialogue sound impossible to hear. Seriously, go watch a video of, like, all the Digimon, like, telling you what their moves are, because they all say their moves as they do them, and tell me what you think they're saying when they say the moves out loud, because a lot of times I don't fucking know. Guilmon's Pyrosphere, I always thought he was saying Henrosphere. Wormmon's Silk Thread, I always thought he was saying Milk Bread. Also, anyone who has the game and can play it, go to Sakuyamon, which is Renamon's evolved form, or Digivolved form rather. Perform her triangle button move and tell me what you think she's saying without looking it up. I would like to know, genuinely. Hey, you remember those 90s and 2000s era family movies that you remember that you forgot? But when you do remember them, they were actually pretty good? That's Stuart Little too. I really enjoyed the Stuart Little movies when I was a kid, and I did have the PS1 game, which this alone was always funny to me. The fact that it was a PS1 game released in 2002, after the PS2, and in the instruction manual had an advertisement for the PlayStation 2 system, but not a PS2 version. What the sense make? But yeah, this one I played a decent bit as a kid, and it really was just kind of baby's first Toy Story 2. Like, if you played Toy Story 2 on the PS1, this game was pretty much that, but a lot easier. But it still had some nice level design, and I think the warmth of Stuart Little as a film was still here. I get the vibe that the people making it actually watched the film, and I don't know, sometimes when it comes to a licensed game, that's enough for me. It's nothing special, and you can find about 7 or 8 other PS1 platformers, 3D platformers specifically, as good as or better than it. But if you're in the mood for something quick, light, and pretty fun without being overly challenging, here you go. This honestly has to be the weirdest game that I've ever played. I found out about it through Astrobot, because Astrobot has references to it, or a reference rather, and then it got re-released on PS Plus, probably as a result, so I just kind of was like, yeah, sure, why not? And, oh my god, this game is weird and, for some reason, really horny. Like, there are moments in this game where I'm like, what? Why is that a thing? One of the levels, you basically, as a mosquito, your whole goal is that you're a mosquito who has to sting a family of people, and one of the people you have to sting is, like, the teenage daughter while she's in the bathtub. Like, obviously they don't show anything, but I'm still like, I felt like I needed to get a shower myself after seeing that. But again, I think there's something to be said for a game that's just weird, but it knows what it's doing and it plays off of that. And I think that's what makes this game succeed, is that it's kind of fun to dick around with. It's very quick, the controls are odd and they can take a while to get used to, but it's still kind of fun to just see what kind of nonsense this game does, because every minute you're like, what the hell is it going to do next? And then it does something even weirder. So kudos to them for just kind of sticking to their vision on this one come hell or high water. Okay, I have made very clear many times that Sonic Adventure 2 Battle to me is a game that I would give a 6 out of 10 to, and that might be a bit of an unpopular take because this is one of the more well-liked 3D Sonic games. And again, I've gone back to it several times. I think I've probably beaten it like 3 or 4 times, and I did recently replay it earlier this year. The truth is, it's a game that I want to love. I want to say much nicer things about it than I'm going to, because there are plenty of good things to it, specifically the Sonic and Shadow levels. It's just that every other part of the game is where it kind of falls apart. Like, the Master Emerald hunting levels are not too bad, except the radar is way worse than it was in Sonic Adventure, and also some of Knuckles and Rouge's levels are among the worst in the game by far. And the mech sections with Tails and Robotnik, ugh. But it's still a game I like to go back to, and I couldn't tell you why. I think it's just, you know, again, probably one of those moments of, it was one of my first Sonic games, it was a huge part of my childhood, so I really enjoy going back to it, even though I get a lot of frustration from the game when I do play it. I also probably see it in a kind of nicer light now because the third Sonic movie came out last year, which was obviously awesome, and it had a lot of references to Sonic Adventure 2, kind of built its story a lot around what Sonic Adventure 2 did. So that kind of helps me look at the game in a slightly more positive light. But yeah, it's a game I wish I liked more. This was one of my first PS2 games that I ever had, and if I'm really thinking about it as a game, it's probably not very good. I mean, there are moments in the game where you're like, is this a SpongeBob game? Because it really doesn't feel like it. The visual design is kind of weird. The audio is super repetitive. There's only like 4 or 5 music tracks in the game, and they loop in pretty much almost every level you go to. And having had the PlayStation 2 edition, I was victim to the loading glitch, the infamous thing where at a point the game would kick you back to the PlayStation 2 memory card screen out of pretty much complete nowhere and make you lose all your progress. Thus, this should be a game that absolutely frustrates the shit out of me, but honestly, I don't know. Again, there's beauty in its simplicity, and I have a lot of good memories with it, and it has some of the SpongeBob charm to it, even in the moments where it doesn't have the SpongeBob charm to it. It's one of those games where I wish I could just take parts of the game and like just put them together. Or I wish I could go back in time and somehow stop the loading glitch from happening, because that would probably make a world's difference on a game like this. Then again, if you have the GameCube version, you never had that problem, so there you go. Another one of the more popular licensed games, one that you probably would think, as someone who talked a lot about licensed games, I would have put in one of my main videos, but yeah, this is a game that also, again, I want to love, but I can't. Just because I think age has hit it like a truck. I think there are a lot of very, very frustrating missions. The controls can be a little bit odd, but roaming around a wide open world in Springfield is actually pretty awesome. A lot of people have said that this is basically like a younger version of Grand Theft Auto, and it kind of is. And again, the world of Springfield is pretty big, great to explore. There's kind of like a couple different sections, so it's not one big open world, but the actual world itself is awesome to free roam in. So I think that gives it kind of a leg up, even if the game itself has its issues. I certainly wouldn't mind seeing it get remade, though. We're talking a lot about Nickelodeon here. Gotta bring up some Fairly OddParents. Breaking the Rules is a game that I've had on PS2 and GameCube, and I've played it a lot. And it's another one of those platformers that is very, very rudimentary. There's not a whole lot to it. It's not the deepest or most exciting game that you ever did play. But as someone who grew up a big fan of Fairly OddParents, I think that it really nailed the show's vibe, the characters, the style of humor. And again, it's not super long, but there's a decent amount of content to it, making it a pretty fun platformer for all ages. It was really cool to see Blitz Games respect the Fairly OddParents license here, and even if the game wasn't incredible, I still enjoyed my time with it. Finally, something that's not a licensed game. That's right, we only have a few more left, I promise. Doom 3 often gets seen as kind of like the black sheep of the Doom series, but I'm gonna be honest, I'd take this over Doom 2 and Doom 64. Those games, I think, had the vibe of just feeling too similar to Doom 1 to the point where it was like, if you played one, you played them all. So I kind of had to respect Doom 3 for taking a pretty big swing and trying something new, specifically going in more of like a horror direction. I do think it has its flaws. It can be very repetitive, and some of the quality of life changes that were made by the BFG edition were a bit odd, but again, I think it was a valiant effort by id Software to take Doom somewhere that it hadn't really been before. And the result was a pretty decent game. And it's one that I can definitely recommend checking out now, because I've talked about this in some videos before, but a lot of times it feels like when something is not what the fans want, they tend to not like it, but then when they get what they wanted all along, it leads them to kind of go back and reappraise the previous thing that they didn't want and look at it with a fresh set of eyes. And I feel like Doom 3 is one of those things that you can probably do that with, because it might not have been what Doom fans wanted back when it came out in 2004, but now that we have games like Doom 2016 and Eternal and the Dark Ages, I feel like those give more of what Doom fans wanted, to the point where Doom 3 is kind of worth going back to now that the fan base has what it really wanted. So, if that's a good enough reason, give it a look. And if that's not a good enough reason, well, it's on modern platforms and it's pretty cheap, so you won't be wasting too much money on it. It's more of SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. Obviously, being a game based on the movie, it was going to be a bit of a rush job, and obviously Heavy Iron just kind of took what they did with Battle for Bikini Bottom and just kind of slapped the movie on top of it, but it did a good job kind of summing up the movie's storyline, and I think it had some unique changes to Battle for Bikini Bottom, even if it wasn't the most interesting game on the planet. I know a lot of people want this game to make a comeback of some kind, maybe get like a remake or have its levels ported into Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated or something like that, and I suppose I wouldn't be against that. I do think Rehydrated made some nice improvements to the original Battle for Bikini Bottom, to the point where I'd like to see what it would look like with that engine using the movie game's levels. I could honestly talk for a while about Chicken Little as a movie and how I have such a soft spot for it, even though it's one of the most detested mainline Walt Disney Animation Studios films. And I think that soft spot does extend to the game, which was a pretty decent 3D platformer that I think did the basics pretty nicely. It's not amazing, and I do have some problems with it, like the driving levels, and I think the reusing of elements in some of the later levels in the game. But for a licensed game based on a not very well-liked Disney movie, I think it's fun enough. Nothing spectacular, but it gets the job done. Honestly, I think I just kind of like it when a game is respectful to its source material, even if the gameplay isn't the best. And that really applies to Ed, Edd and Eddy, the Mis-Edventures. Ed, Edd and Eddy is one of my favorite cartoons, and the game, as far as the gameplay itself, is nothing spectacular. Again, incredibly simplistic, and the models are honestly kind of hideous, but it pretty much nails the Ed, Edd and Eddy style of humor, and I think a lot of the overall scenarios in the game are pretty accurate to what the characters would do and what kind of situations they'd end up in, and I think that makes it pretty fun to check out. At least as like a rainy day rental kind of game where you just play it for a couple hours and then give it back or something like that. I know we don't really have much like that these days, but if you can find a way to just grab it for a couple days, give it a try. Also, if you want a little fun fact about this game, it was made by Artificial Mind and Movement, whose abbreviation was A2M. Yes, ass to mouth. And this developer, now known as Behavior Interactive, would go on to make Dead by Daylight. Welcome to Bizarro World. When are we getting Ed, Edd and Eddy and Dead by Daylight? Okay, back away from licensed games. I think there's like one or two more here, but moving back away from licensed games, this was a game that I got very early along with my Wii. Not at the moment I got it, but it was one of the games I was really looking forward to because it just looks stupidly fun, and at times it can be stupidly fun. It does definitely wear thin, and I think that tends to be a problem with any game that's like a mini-game collection, but a lot of the mini-games are really fun, and I think the game does a decent enough job at showing off the Wii's motion controls, and I think the absurdist humor is definitely there in spades. As someone who really likes a lot of absurd and bizarre humor, I think it works for me, and it still manages to be fun in a way that I think most of its successors failed to do. It is also definitely a shame to me that these guys would overshadow Rayman as a whole, and that the Rayman franchise kind of took a back seat in favor of the Rabbids, but at least this game is still fun enough to go back to. Another minigame collection on the Wii, and another one that, again, like many of them, was pretty hit or miss. Not every event in this game was absolutely spectacular, but I think the high points were incredibly fun. I know it's a very simple thing to be oohed and awed by, but even just doing like the 100-meter dash where you're just kind of moving the Wiimote and nunchuck like that was honestly really fun to me. And at the time, as a 9-year-old kid, holy crap, it was pretty charming to get to see Mario and Sonic in a video game together, even if, like many, I would have preferred if it was like a proper platformer of some kind. But at least we got to see them doing something. And again, for the most part, that something was pretty fun, even if, again, some of the minigames were just not very good. Okay, only 2 more licensed games to talk about, promise. This first one was basically Heavy Iron Studios saying, hey, remember when we made SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom? Good. We do too. In a lot of ways, I mean, I guess that's kind of what Truth or Square as a TV special was. It was a lot of, like, reminiscing, I guess. So I guess it's not surprising to see them make a game where they're just kind of, like, reminding you that, like, Battle for Bikini Bottom was a thing. And that's not to say it's a copy and paste, because the gameplay is definitely different. But, again, it's very much like a, hey, we did this thing, and this is going to be our last SpongeBob game because THQ is kind of done doing licensed games, so let's just go out how we would. And it can be a fun game. It's just a very bog-standard platformer that doesn't quite match up to what Battle for Bikini Bottom did. But again, it's really quick, really simple, you can get through it in a day, so it's still worth trying out. This is the last licensed game we're going to talk about in this video, and it's one that I will never not believe was a real thing. Nicktoons characters matching up alongside MLB players. I promise you, I am sober. I do not do any, I'm a straight edge person. I promise I'm not just making some shit up. This was indeed a real game. Nicktoons and MLB. Again though, when this came out when I was 13, I was actually really interested in it as a huge baseball fan and as someone who's grown up on Nickelodeon. And I was shocked because it actually was quite fun. Again, pretty basic baseball game, but it had great amounts of charm, and it was really awesome seeing the sheer amount of real MLB players that were in the game. So as weird of a collab as it was, I enjoyed my time with it. I will only really say, though, that it was a Kinect-compatible game on the Xbox 360, which I had the 360 version, and the Kinect controls, as you would probably predict, were horseshit. But the game itself was decent. This could encompass a couple different MLB 2K games. I'm putting 2K10 here because, given that I actually rated it a 7, it should have made the Just Missed the Cut section my 2010 video. Sorry about that. But I played 2010, 2011, and I also played a decent bit of 2K8 on the Wii, and I even played 2K13, which I still actually have a copy of, even though that was the last one in the series, and it was literally a direct copy and paste of 2K12, and was, again, not too great because of that. But yeah, I definitely played my share of the MLB 2K games, and for sure, they pale in comparison to MLB The Show. I happened to get into 2K right around the time that MLB The Show was really starting to pop off. And again, with how realistic MLB The Show is and was, it feels like a game like this obviously paled in comparison, but they were still very capable baseball games that, at least early on, I thought even had the potential to be a little bit deeper in some areas. If there's one area I could say I liked in MLB 2K, it's that I think the broadcasting was probably better than some current MLB The Show games. In the current games, I have to turn off the broadcasters because it's just so robotic sounding and you can clearly hear where they splice in the audio. At least in games like this, it felt natural. And I know it was easy to make fun of a lot of the facial models in the MLB 2K games, but all in all, it was still pretty enjoyable. This was the point in time where New Super Mario Bros. Was really starting to just kind of be like, ugh, another one. And by way of being a Mario game, it was fun, and it definitely had some enjoyable elements. It's just that relative to the series that it comes from, which is one of the greatest in gaming, one of my all-time favorites in gaming, it's just a thoroughly unmemorable game that doesn't really have many exciting new creative ideas to offer. And it feels like it kind of compensates for that by just throwing a bunch of coins at you. Again, I personally enjoy the New Super Mario Bros. Formula, so I don't mind it even if it's not that great, but at the end of the day, yeah, this one I think Nintendo could have kept, and I don't know if it would have changed much, honestly. I've mentioned that I enjoy Quantic Dreams games more than most do, and I have a bit of an attachment to a game like Beyond Two Souls, even if, again, it's not that great in a lot of areas. Story-wise, it is absolutely all over the place, and I think that the decision to tell it out of order and things like that, and the way that it was done, definitely gives a lot of big-time ammunition for people who do not like Quantic Dream or who do not like David Cage and think that he's just a pretentious twat. But I still have some fond memories of playing it because when it came out I was super duper hyped for it, and at least on my first playthrough it really did do well for me. I did really enjoy my time with it. It's just that after playing it a second time is when I started to see the flaws shine through even harder. And unlike a game like Heavy Rain that I think was flawed but still super enjoyable, with Beyond Two Souls it was a little harder to ignore. But it is technically sound. There are some great performances from Elliot Page and Willem Dafoe. Again, visually it's absolutely stunning, so it's not terrible, and it's probably better on its PS4 version now because you can play the PS4 version of the story in order, so that's nice. Definitely wouldn't put it anywhere near Heavy Rain or Detroit Become Human, but I still kind of have a lot of fond memories with this one, and I still look back on it fondly, even if I have to acknowledge the obvious problems with it. Yes, I have a poster of this game on my wall. You've probably seen it, and if you haven't, now you have. I remember being one of the many people that was super excited about Watch Dogs when I first heard about it, because the concept just seemed cool. A game centered around hacking, that's pretty dope. And yeah, we know the game was seemingly downgraded. Not even seemingly, I'm pretty sure it was. It was downgraded from its E3 demo, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who will say that the game I pictured in my head was cooler than the one that we got here. But I still definitely had my fun with it, especially just roaming around in the open world, just doing some chaotic shit, even if it could have been a lot better. There were good ideas worth ironing out, and I'm glad the sequel was able to do that. I don't know if I'd necessarily return to it in the way that I would the sequel, but I have thought about giving it another play just because. It's nothing amazing, but it was a cool concept, and I'm glad that it at least got a sequel that improved on it in so many ways. I know, people hate the car. They hate the Mario Party games with the car, they hate the way things changed, and I get it. But Mario Party 10, again, is a game that I just have way too many fond memories with, specifically because of Bowser Party. I thought Bowser Party was a really, really fun mode, and it was cool to just have a 5-player Wii U game. I feel like there was so much potential for more games to do 5-player with like the gamepad and 4 Wiimotes or something like that, but very few games really took advantage of that. So it was cool to have a game that actually took advantage of that. And the Bowser Party mode, again, was super chaotic, super fun, had some great mini games. I will say the Amiibo Party mode did suck ass, but Bowser Party alone made this a pretty fun package. By far, this game has been outdone by all of the Switch Mario Party games, but they're still fun to be had here. And lastly, this one might be a bit of a surprising addition to this video because, well, it's not a licensed game, and it's an indie game as well. I remember when this first came around, I was super hyped for it because I saw it at several Sony shows and it looked awesome. And then when it came out, I was honestly a bit disappointed by it. I remember saying that I felt like it was a game that had a lot of good ideas but just didn't really know what to do with them. Like, the movement was awesome and getting to roam around the levels was really cool, but the level design, the bosses, and the puzzles, they all got pretty dull, monotonous, and repetitive all too fast, and I think it made it not as good as it could have been. But admittedly, unlike some games that you just kind of play once and shove to the side, I did end up replaying this game, and I still kind of enjoyed my time with it because aesthetically it was so cool, and again, there are great high points in the game, even if the game as a whole isn't fantastic. And again, being that it is a quick game, it doesn't take very long, it is kind of easy to jump back into and just play again because all you need is a couple hours. Easy to go back to, not incredible, but it's kind of decent. Granted, I never did play Hyper Light Drifter, and that might, if I played that, change the way I feel about this game. Because I know it's not the same thing, but I know when it came out, people were calling it like 3D Hyper Light Drifter, which probably sounds cooler in my head than what the actual game is. But again, it's still worth playing, and it's a game that I do often think about going back to from time to time. Like, it was a fun thing to replay, and I wouldn't mind doing it again. So yeah, those are my favorite mid-games, I guess is what I'll call this video. A great reminder that just because a game gets a certain number rating doesn't mean it's going to impact you in the way that something that's seemingly a little average would. And also a good sign to not take a number rating of a game so seriously. Because I'm very sure now that this is out, and now that you guys will see some games that I've given like a 6 or 5 to, you guys might be like, oh, you gave this game a 6, but you think this game is a 9, unsubscribed. But as I said, there's your sign. Don't take the number rating so seriously. Of course, this is all just my opinion. What are some mid-games that you really enjoy? What are some games that if you were really thinking about it, you would be like, oh, this game's like a 5 or 6 out of 10, but you can't stop playing it, or you really enjoy going back to it, or anything like that? Whatever your thoughts and opinions are, leave them down in the comments below. Let's keep this civil and have some fun as we like to do. If you guys want to hit like and subscribe and support some of my other ventures that I have linked in the description, thank you. If not, it's no big deal. I totally understand. And yeah, I'm not going to give away the ideas that I have for future videos just yet because, like I said, I do have a few, but I don't want to, like, tell you guys, hey, this is what I'm making, and then not be able to deliver on it. But again, I have a couple different ideas that I'm putting together now. I'm going to see how they work. Hopefully get these videos out. I think, though, the next time that I do a longer video, if the rumors are true, seemingly this week we're finally going to get a new Nintendo Direct. I hope we do. And if we do, I will obviously do a video on that. So that might be the next time you see me, if those rumors turn out true. If not, we'll see how the next video comes along. Hopefully I won't have to keep you guys waiting too long, but we'll see how it goes. So stay tuned for that, but until next time, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.